Hey all, welcome to another quick tutorial on some Ruby basics. Now, in the last tutorial we looked at if statements and nested if statements, and in fact with case statements we also looked at something very similar, which is Ruby flow control. So as we saw last time when we had a look at, I think it was, let's see if we've got these up here, for example the nested if, we looked at how certain conditions, if a certain condition is met, then go on to do something else, do something else, do something else, etc. But there's another couple of aspects to this that I wanted to cover, and in the if statement we're essentially trying to evaluate conditions to true or false and then decide what we're going to do about that. And the basic if statement looked like this: if, then do something, else if, and you can keep going on with these and finish. Now sometimes it's just if it's something, do this, else do something else, and there's a much shorter way of writing the if statement, and that's what they call the ternary, or the it's called the base 3 format, right? So, or the base 3 operator as it's correctly called. And the ternary version of the if statement, let's assign a very simple variable. So we'll just assign a variable called a, and then we'll say, well, if a, triple equals does mean something, but hang on, if a equals 1, so we'll ask a question. Remember we saw this against the nested if as well. Let's just go back here. So on the include, if you recall, that was against an array, of course, but we're using the query here as well. So a equals 1, then what we can do something, or else we can do something else. And what we'll do then, it will say if a equals 1, well, let's just keep it really simple. Let's just put, I don't know, banana, right? Just so we know there's a difference. Or else puts, not within quotes, we'll put cheese, right? Terrible example, but you get the idea. And the way this reads is to say, because hang on, what we're doing is, just to recap, you will know this, we're setting the value of our variable a to be 2, right? And then in the next line we ask, does a equal 1? So this is our way of evaluating the value of a variable. So does a equal 1? We're asking a question here, and we're saying if it's true then puts banana, else if it's false then puts cheese, right? And this is the ternary version. So we've got 3 different blocks of code going on here. Now I recommend that you only use this for very simple statements. If this was all you wanted to do, if you just wanted to evaluate one or the other, well, hang on, true or false strictly, and if it's true do something, if it's false do something simple, then if construct, or certainly nested ifs, but if construct would be a bit too much. So this is our, let me just make sure I put this, if ternary format, right? And this can be quite useful. Clearly, this just makes life very simple. And in fact, if we, where are we? Let's just save that down. Oops, I've selected the wrong one. Hang on. Flow, don't we? Okay. So it just prints cheese when we run this, because a equals 2. Does a equal 1? That's not true, so we can't run that. It's false, plus cheese. But if we change this to 1 and save that down, and then run flow again, it prints banana because it's now true. Simple as that, right? Pretty straightforward stuff. Let's get rid of that for now. We can come back to it in a second. So that was the ternary, and like I say, use it in simple cases. Don't put too much code in there, Use it for things like, you know, doing a quick piece of math, doing a quick evaluation, and then branching out in your code, calling in a file, etc. Or, you know, maybe concatenating two strings. Perhaps you've got, you know, if an input is a certain operand, plus, minus, divide, equals, then, you know, perform this action on a piece of code or perform something else. Now, in addition to that little extra piece of flow control, and in addition to our case and if statements, we also have two other options we can use: until and while. I'm sure you've seen these in other programs as well. Now, there's something very important to remember here, because these do get a bit confusing. You can look at the code and go, hey, you know what, this code looks pretty similar, what the heck is the difference here? And until will run, let me just try to do something here, run so long as a condition is false, right? Whereas while will run so long as a condition is true. And this is the difference of them. While something is true, keep going until a certain condition is achieved. Keep going. So the until, the code executes so long as a condition evaluates to false, and the while, the code executes so long as a condition evaluates to true. So in fact, let's just put that there, and let's put that there just for reference while we go along. It's very easy to forget the difference on these, so I certainly recommend that you have a play with some examples. And let's see, let's have a look at an example here. So we've set up a new variable, we'll call it c equals 1, and then we'll come in with our until, if you can spell it correctly. So until c equals, let's say, 6. What I want you to do is put, we'll just use that, c, whoops, equals, and we'll use some interpolation, c, right? C equals c. So we'll put the value of c, we'll just say c equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when it equals 6, it's over. Okay, so what we need to do then is increment, and here's how we do it. We go, we want to plus the value up 1, and what we need to do is end our until statement. So until c equals 6, right? It runs so long as the condition evaluates to false. So this is false. It's not 6, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5. It becomes true when it's 6, and the until terminates. So let's have a look at that. Let's just make sure we've got that in there right. So what we'd expect to see is 5 lines printed to the screen. Puts c equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will evaluate to true. Untils only run while the condition is evaluated to false. Once it's true, it should terminate. So let's see if that actually works. Alright, there we go. So that was the output, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's false, 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 gets to 6, it's true, and the until terminates. Okay, let's just clear this down here. Now, the while statement, let's set another variable up. So what we want to say here is while d is less than 6, it would be, wouldn't it? Or is it d is less than 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you think that's 5, we'll soon see. And then we have another keyword here, do. The do is optional, but let's include it anyway. Oh, and it's thrown my end in. So we put d equals, let's do some interpolation. Where are you? There you are. So d equals d, of course. We want to increment, so d, increment it by 1, and that's it. What we'll do, okay, I'm not actually sure if it will run together, but let's just hit save and run this anyway and see what we get. Let's just see what kind of mess this creates. Bloop. Okay, So we can see here D equals 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it should be 6, isn't it? That doesn't make sense on 5. Okay, so when it's less than 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, remember that for the while, code executes so long as the condition evaluates to true. It is true that D is less than 6 because it starts at 1. Goes around, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5. D becomes 6, it's not less, it's equal to 6. So it terminates because it becomes true. This condition we're evaluating here becomes true. This becomes until it goes to false. It's confusing just explaining it. Let's get rid of this just for a second, and let's see what happens down here. We should see just D now, which it should run correctly. D is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D is less than 6. No, it equals 6. I only run if it's true. It's no longer true, it terminates. And then if we Control Z and get rid of this one, run it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C equals 5. So an until runs so long as the condition is evaluated to false. So C equals 6, it's false. I will keep running to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C does equal 6, it's true, and the until terminates. And that is the difference between an until and a while. Remember, the do keyword is optional, but you know, it's more correct to use it, of course, just like adding then in our if statements. That's it, a little bit of basic flow control. And remember, we just had a quick look at the if ternary operator that allows us to simplify our if statements. Okay, let's leave this one here. It's slightly confusing, so go away and practice and come up with your own conditions and just work out what the difference is here. Okay, so remember, an until, code executes so long as the condition is false, and a while the code executes so long as the condition is true. That's the only difference. Alright then, see you in the next one.